Welcome back to Sub-Zero Hero. So with just 4 games to go of the Under-19 Championship, our youngsters look like they could be going on to clinch their second Norwegian Under-19 title. But we're all here to see how the first team are getting on, aren't we? And after our last episode, well, it looked like we were getting dragged into a relegation battle. Today, we've come back for the derby game against Tromsdalen, and because of those relegation fears, this could well be the last derby of the series. So as you can see from the table, there are a couple of teams from our neck of the woods in relegation trouble, but it's our rivals Tromsdalen that are struggling more. They're on just 12 points. If we could beat them today in the derby, lifting us to 31, I'm pretty much confident that we are going to be safe for another season of Premier Division football, because that would open up a pretty nice gap between us and Ålesund, and I think it could well subject Tromsø to relegation. Since our last episode, we've played a few games, we've changed our system a little bit, and we've had a little bit of a renaissance, because at the end of the last episode, well, things were starting to look a little bit desperate. We'd been on a terrible run of form. We had one more game after the last episode before we had this month-long break, I think perhaps because the World Cup was taking place. We played Viking, a team that are struggling in the league. We could only get a 1-1 draw against them. So I decided to use this month-long break to organise some friendlies and test out a different way of playing. Now, when we have these little breaks and play friendlies, I'm not a huge fan of playing soft track bully and inviting non-league teams and whooping them just to get the confidence up. That doesn't really tell you whether the tactical changes you're thinking of are actually going to be any use when the season kicks in again. So we play some tough opposition in terms of Malmö, Bodø/Glimt and Tromsø. We looked pretty good in these games. And then when we went back into league action against Sandefjord, well, I think you could say that we stumbled upon a formula that might have been working a little bit better for us. We switched back to this 4-3-3, playing a player in front of the back four to try and protect them. I started out playing a deep-lying playmaker in front of that back four. I've moved away from that system now. You'll also note that by just having one player up front, it meant that I dropped Runnigan into midfield. Now, Runnigan, I'm thinking, is our best player in the squad right now, and one who I can see bids coming in for over the next year or so. He's developing incredibly well. He's still only 18, but he didn't really look very good playing in that central midfield role. You'll see that in our next game, where we performed superbly to beat Vålerenga 4-0 using our 4-3-3, well, you'll see that the deep line playmaker in front of the back four didn't play great. Neither did Runnigan in central midfield, and that was a theme that continued because we lost our next game against Bodø/Glimt, and Runnigan played really poorly again, looking like he wasn't able to adapt to playing in that midfield position. Even when we got back to winning ways, beating Stabæk 2-0, Runnigan was struggling to get a 7. So as we continued, we got a couple more pretty labouring performances. We lost 4-0 to Brann, Runnigan having a terrible game, and this deep-lying playmaker in front of the back four really didn't seem to be working like I wanted it to. So we managed to get a win in our next game against Kristiansand before another month-long break. It can't be a second World Cup, so I'm not sure why we had such a long break again, but I organised another couple of friendlies against some tough opponents, and I've tweaked the system again. We're still 4-3-3, but I've made some changes to our tactics that, well, really do change the style of play that we are playing. And with this change, I am going to anger all of the advocates of the target man up front hoofball system that you've become accustomed to watching during the last 11 seasons. So this is how we've been lining up for the last couple of games. Brace yourselves, the target man has gone. Hugo Emper is on the bench, Runnigan is back up front, and I'm going to get thrown out of the long ball guild because I'm playing a false 9 now, and I'm playing shorter passing. Now, this is witchcraft, the likes we've not seen in this series so far, but just having a lone target man up front meant that we were going very, very long, and he was holding the ball up but didn't have a lot of support to play it to. He was often flicking the ball on for their goalkeeper to collect. And Runnigan was just not performing very well in central midfield, and I really am keen to carry on developing him because I think he could morph into quite the little player. And moving him out of midfield up front, I think, is going to get him back to his best. And I've also moved where our deep line playmaker is. No longer is he patrolling around just in front of the back four. He's now going to be in a central midfield berth with a box-to-box midfielder next to him who's going to try and burst on beyond the false nine, meaning that we can have some proper protection in front of our back four. And we may well need some proper protection because we've got Heidecker out suspended for today's game, although no great loss in my opinion. This guy's getting worse the longer he is with us. I'm not sure he is much longer for our first team squad. And we've also had an injury for the last 3 or 4 weeks to Lars Ole Idoi Hansen, so he's unavailable for today's game. So we are going to be playing young Asad Jawad at centre half again today. I think he can develop into a decent centre half. There were some naysayers down in the comments at the end of the last video, and I guess I did sub him at half time, so I fueled that, but we have had some other good developmental progress over the last, couple of months of the season. Grachev now, he's really starting to look the part. He's got himself a little bit quicker now. He's making improvements in all areas of his game. We still want those technicals to improve, but even going forward now, his crossing and dribbling are pretty good. Passing and vision are getting better all the time. I think it's been a good year's work for him. Jawad, as we've seen, is already developing pretty well. Over on the right-hand side, I can't really decide whether I prefer Håkon Skogdal as a wide player or as a striker. We're going to play him out wide today because I like his pace and dribbling. And I think as a very attacking winger out there, he might be useful for us. The other player who I think we've got to praise for his development is Christian Berntsen. The transfer window has just closed. An offer did come in for Christian Berntsen from Augsburg in the Bundesliga. We turned it down because it was a bit of a derisory offer. It was only about £500,000 compared to his value. I guess £500,000 is not an insult, but compared to how good I think he could develop to, considering he's still just 17, I think if we hold on to him, we're going to be getting much bigger bids than that. And like a number of our players, I've got him committed to signing a new long-term deal at the end of the season, so we're not in any danger of losing any of our bright young prospects. So let's remind ourselves of that league position. We're going out against Tromsø today in a derby game. Anything is possible. A win, and I think we can say that we are safe, but we're going to be experimenting with a new style of play in a couple of friendlies. It's looked very pleasing on the eye, but we're back into Premier Division action today. It could well blow right up in my face. Okay, we are underway with the away team today, so we are in Tromsø's Alfheim Stadium. Blooding a new system yet again is a little bit of a risk in such a high stakes game, but well, I've got to keep trying to find a little system that suits the players we've got coming through, and in a couple of friendlies that we played, we were playing some silky smooth football. Long gone are the days where we were just lumping it up to a target man. We actually looked pretty controlled, pretty threatening at times, but those were friendlies against a couple of Danish clubs. This is going to be an altogether different proposition. We've got Hartvigsson back out over on the left wing, although he is still not playing fabulously. I think he scored 1 goal in the games that you've missed, but he is way off the form he showed earlier on in his career. And this is a very long highlight where they've managed to get the ball. One area where we still are really struggling is down at right back. I'm not sure Oscar Berg is going to be a long-term solution for us. I think it's that inconsistency trait that he has, which means he can be solid 1 week and then he can get torn to shreds the next. How has this game started? We've got 3 shots. They've got 3 as well now. pretty even so far, isn't it? And now they've got a little set play. We look like we could break here. Here's Heron, the playmaker. He's not the quickest. He could do with someone to give it to, and Skogdal is a lot pacier. And he's tested their keeper. That was a good break. Although with the numbers we had, it's not like we were that incisive. We've got Grachev on the corners here. He's slung one in. Berntsen, he can hit them. He does like a little long shot. This time he decides to recycle possession instead. Here's Heron. Hartvigsson. You'll see Runnigan likes to keep moving out of the box to get involved in the build-up play as the false nine. I know that I'm a zealot when it comes to 4-4-2, but I have to say, I have quite liked the way the false nine role has played. However, we've not really had any great chances so far, and they have. Oscar Agadoo breaks through our defensive line, and we needed Pedersen to save us there. We look like we could get another little counter going. No, Skogdal can't get onto the ball. And again, it's not been the most impressive first half performance from us. Match stats are relatively even, but they've definitely had the better chances. I feel like we'll be lucky if we go into half-time in the lead. Hartvigson's through. That was a nice chance created there. I think that was Heron with the little through ball. That looked dangerous, but yet again, Hartvigsson spurns his chance. That was a nice little corner routine as well. And unfortunately, that one got tipped over. Another corner. We got Grachev sending it in. And this time we're going to have to stop the counter-attack because a couple of slow players with poor anticipation on the edge of the box did not spot that their player was making his way towards the ball. Jawad gets a good tackle in though. He's honestly played all right at centre-half. And we're into these highlights again. Skogdal, Heron, Berntsen. They're moving it around the midfield nicely. Runnigan's in. I was praying that he was offside, otherwise he spurned another good chance, and he has. That was a decent opportunity for Heron. Or for Runnigan, I should say, sent through by Heron, and he wasn't able to take it. So we're at 0-0 at half-time. Look, we're ahead in the XG. We've looked relatively good. Remember, we are playing our rivals who are struggling against relegation. So I'm going to have a little chat with the boys. I'm going to have a look and see whether we need to make any little tweaks to the way we're playing. And I'll see you for the second half. So we're back underway. I've resisted the temptation to make any changes. I'm just going to stick with it because we did create a few chances towards the end of that first half. I was tempted to take Hartvigsson off because of his miss and bring on young Sperovic, but we're going to keep our powder dry on that one as well. Although hurtling our way towards half an hour to go, we've not really done too much extra, have we? So I think we are going to pause. I think we're going to demand a little bit more, and I also think we might make a couple of changes. So I'm thinking we might make two changes out wide. We're going to bring the pace of Schönerson out onto the right, and we're going to bring the trickery of Thijs Sperovic over onto the left. He's a right footer, but he can play inside as well, and he can also take a slightly better set piece than any of our other players. So we'll see whether that can help us find the breakthrough. We've got just over 20 minutes left, and God, we're having a second half without any highlights whatsoever. We're going to try and fire them up with another shout. But again, the back four are playing all right, but further up the pitch, there's not a lot happening, is there? Do we have any more poor performances or tired legs? We've got Berntsen. We don't have a lot in central midfield that we can change him with. Let's go with Kristoffersen, who's back from cruciate ligament damage. And bringing him on has forced a highlight. Maybe not one for us, though, because Tromsø have got the ball. Can we rob it? Oh, that is weak up front from Runnigan. He probably should have won that. We've returned it to them, and they've dinked one over the top, and Agadoo is a marksman. Not on that occasion. He's dragged it wide. 10 minutes to go. We need a little bit more. We've had 11 shots, 5 on target. We're going to demand more for the final time. I think the highlight started before I got that little call out. There's Runnigan dropping deep, playing those through balls. Disbelief was in, but he has blasted wide. But you can see how Runnigan likes to just come into that number 10 slot, turn, and play in one of those wide players. I think it certainly suits his player trait of coming deep to get the ball and playing killer balls quite nicely. But let's be honest, that was a little bit of a damp game, wasn't it? Positives, all of the back five and the player in front of them played pretty well. Heron looked decent as the playmaker. Maybe it was out wide and up front where we missed our chances and fluffed our lines a little bit. Hartington should have scored. Runnigan should have scored. Disbelief should have scored. We could have got a 1, maybe a 2-0 win from that game. But at least we're looking a little bit more solid at the back. That was a better defensive display than we've had in some of our other games. You'll also note that even though Tromsdalen are in the relegation zone and we're mid-table, all of the speculation is about how we upset the odds by avoiding defeat back there. The press keep on saying what a great season we're having, even though we were flirting with relegation for a while, and the board are completely content with us just battling to avoid relegation, which we're doing quite successfully. So, with 9 games to go, we're looking in slightly better shape. I'd like a strong finish to the season now. I'd like to force our way up into the top 8, maybe the top 6. That's going to take a good run of form. Whether we'll see that kind of form, I'm not sure. We'll find out when we come back next in our bid to become Sub-Zero Heroes.